Greetings, Hempster. Thank you for tuning in to another hemp episode of HempAware Radio. This is your hemp-entrepreneurial host, Tyler Hemp, here to empower and hemp-educate your hemposphere because it's hemp-portant. Hemp entrepreneurs and hemp companies around the world are struggling to market, sell their products effectively, but it doesn't have to be that way. At HempAware, we provide strategic marketing and branding services and tools so that hemp entrepreneurs just like you can transform the world with your hemp products and services and transform the planet in a way that supports all life. So if you're struggling to get traffic to your website or convert that traffic into ongoing sales, and if you're needing help with your website or your marketing or your branding in any way, just visit HempAware.com and check out some of the valuable resources that we have available for hemp entrepreneurs and companies just like yours. On today's show, I'm excited to introduce you to a gentleman who is the head of growth, partnerships, and community. It's a non-hemp-based company, but that's okay because what we have in share for you today or in store for you today, especially if you have a hemp podcast or if you want to start one, is going to really help you accelerate your content creation process and make your life a lot easier so that you can have a wider reach, get more listeners, followers, and engagement on the social platforms where your brand is present. This gentleman I'm about to introduce to you is Greg Wasserman of Cast Magic, and their promise is to help you turn audio into content like magic. Now, Cast Magic is a tool that was created by professionals who take content creation seriously. Are you spending too much time or money just to transcribe and create content from your media files? Well, they were too. And too many creators don't have the time or resources to derive impactful assets from audio and video content. And there was no alternative, but not anymore. The Cast Magic team set out to make content extraction and creation dead simple. So the purpose of this hemp episode is to help hemp podcasters to start scaling your business with content with the most powerful content AI at your fingertips. So Hempster, as you know, it's been way too long since hemp was known for what it truly is, an essential solution for food, homes, clothing, plastics, fuel, energy, medicine, and so much more. So if you're ready to take your hemp content creation to the next level and learn some things about how you can do better with your hemp business, then you're going to love this hemp episode. So with that said, welcome, Greg. I appreciate you being on HempAware Radio.
Hey, what an intro. Pleasure to be here, Tyler.
Right on. Yeah. So to give our listeners a little bit of background and, since this is a hemp-related podcast, I'm curious, have you had interactions with hemp? What is your general background as it relates to industrial hemp products?
Yeah, I hate to say it's not been much. And so in preparation for our conversation, but also just over the last few months of us talking, I'm like, all right, I'm diving into this more. And I'm like, wow, like, how is this not out there? But then you start thinking like, no different than most cases. It's like probably regulations. Why is oil still what oil is as opposed to other things? Well, because there's more money in lobbying it. So I'm like, all right, there's probably more money in cotton lobbies and so forth than what the hemp industry is, but also probably the negative connotations that hemp's probably gotten over the years, which has changed. So it's really interesting kind of diving into this, going like, all right, like I'm really excited to talk with you and your audience and basically go like, all right, I'm a core user, not of the product, but in terms of like how you can change my mindset and go like, wow, I should be doing more. I should be paying attention to these things. How can the industry help do that better?
Exactly. Yeah. And a lot of our listeners are hemp entrepreneurs, hemp companies, or people that want to get into the hemp world. And the foundation of what we teach is education. It's essential for any consumer to be educated before they make purchases. And with the social media world and the Googles and all the places that people can educate themselves, it's important for other hemp owners, hemp businesses to be able to educate their customers and provide high quality content to do that. And I'm excited to get into the Cast Magic tool and share with them how they can utilize this tool to accelerate their growth and create amazing content. But to kind of dive a little bit deeper into your impression of hemp, just your overall perception. I know you started doing a little bit of research between our last call and this show. What was like one thing that stood out to you or kind of like amazed you about hemp in general?
I mean, one thing, first thing that came to my mind is it uses less land, less water to produce more than what I read, cotton can do. So you're like, hold on, this is more durable, this lasts longer, it requires less resources per se. That's incredible, right? I live here in Los Angeles, so California. So you hear a lot of the news about almonds and going like, wow, how much water almonds take, it's still being done. It's like, hold on, like if we have precious resources, why aren't we doing more with the things that we've got? And so that was the one thing. It was like, wow, I can get something that lasts longer, that's stronger, more durable, and requires less resources from a water standpoint, land standpoint, that could give you the I don't know, endless supply of different products, use cases that it's got. Why aren't we doing that?
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Yeah, you hit that epiphany moment like many hempsters hit, at some point when they come across hemp and see its potential and how much easier it is to produce without the toxic chemicals, without the extra land use, like you said, and extra water use. This show is not intended for that level of conversation, but I appreciate you sharing that with me. And you and I actually have a live webinar planned on Monday, February 29th at 3 p.m. Pacific. And we're going to dive deeper into how HempAware listeners and other hempsters, hemp entrepreneurs, and companies can leverage the power of AI to accelerate their content marketing strategy, particularly if they have a podcast or they produce any sort of video or audio.
It goes beyond just podcasting.
Yeah, exactly. So, obviously we want our listeners and all of the users of Cast Magic, you want them to experience more freedom, more time freedom, more abundance, more business. And so I know that's what this magical tool can do for people. But just to give a little preview of what we're going to discuss, or maybe an overview and how the platform works and some of the things that we'll be covering on that live webinar, let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you go back to your comment about what your show is all about, what in a sense a lot of your ethos is about is education on the hemp industry and the value of it. So if you now take a tool like Cast Magic to create more content out there to educate consumers on the value, you have the ability to start flooding the market if you want, in terms of educating, creating more content to keep the buzz going, to engage with different people, so that we are, in a sense, you're trying to get someone like me to go, wow, I should be thinking more about the value of hemp and being more conscious of it when I'm making purchase decisions or looking for things in that regards. Well, how do you do that? You have to stay in front of me often and consumers like me. So the best way to do that is to produce more content. And the easiest way to produce more content is take one file, whether it's a video or audio or a memo, and then turn that into all these different assets, whether it's a blog, a newsletter, a social post, a script for a content piece. So how do we then start, once again, allowing your listeners, the hemp industry, to really ramp up content repurposing and using, one core file to do so?
Right. Yeah. And you kind of touched on some of the main benefits or features of the tool, which is to be able to create scripts, to be able to create social media posts, newsletters, and other forms of content. And we'll get into how the platform works shortly, but I'm curious, what inspired you as professional to join the Cast Magic team as head of growth and partnerships and community? Was there a particular gap in the market that you wanted to address? And, how might that relate to helping hemp podcasters?
Yeah. So if we take a step back, my background was in media sales. So working with brands and agencies and helping from a media standpoint. Then I went to another role and was working in the podcast space. And so when you're working with podcasters, as a podcaster yourself, the three questions that most podcasters ask is, how do I get more distribution? How do I grow my audience? And how do I monetize? And so where I sat leading a listening platform, my job was literally, how do I help answer those questions for podcasters? And one thing that I kept seeing is the mentality was all about just downloads. How do I get more listens? How do I get more engagement with my podcast? But the joys of a podcast, the joys of an audio medium and video is you can repurpose that and create all other assets. So you can start treating yourself as a brand. And so if I think about it from the hemp industry, it's like, great, you're a podcaster. But if we think about actually HempAware, like you've got an entire website of products and education to all the things. Like your podcast is just one component of your brand. So it's really a matter of how do we help people do that? And so every Monday, I post 3 podcasts I think people should listen to on my LinkedIn. Happen to have done the founders of Cast Magic show before they even built Cast Magic. Months later, they had built the tool. They reached out to me like, hey, we built this tool. You seem to know a lot about podcasting. Are you interested in talking? And they showed it to me and I'm like, mind blown. I'm in, because this now allows, at the time, podcasters to think well beyond just downloads and start to take their audio file and repurpose it so that they've got a blog and they can engage. Because for me, I may never listen to a podcaster show, but I can follow them on LinkedIn. I could follow them on social Twitter. I can follow their newsletter. One source file allows you to do all of that. And so that's what got me so excited about what Cast Magic as a tool was finally able to do. And then knowing what the company does, I lead the community. So being community based. So for the hemp industry, like, yes, if it's all about education. It's all about content repurposing. It's all about getting your message out there more than others that you're probably competing with. So how do you stay top of mind?
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's a few other, tools out there that I think do maybe something similar. When I used Cast Magic, I personally have not seen any other tool that provides the unique output and the breadth of resources or content that it helps you repurpose one piece of content. But in terms of the marketplace and other various tools out there, what makes Cast Magic kind of stand out for you or for, hemp podcasters that might start using it?
The control, I guess the pre-designed, well, I guess to answer this, we've got to explain a little bit about Cast Magic, right? So Cast Magic allows you to choose up to 8 different profiles. So am I inserting a podcast? Am I inserting a YouTube video? Am I doing meetings? Am I doing a coaching call? Am I doing a course that I've created? And so what is the input? What is the recording that I'm uploading in there? Choose kind of which of those profiles are. And then we've already pre-designed. So in minutes, you'll be able to get all these outputs based on what that audio recording is. So if it's a podcast, you're going to get certain things. It's a meeting, you're going to get certain things. So you can start running your meetings, your internal meetings, or your external client calls or sales calls through Cast Magic. And it's going to give you all this breadth of knowledge. And then to your question specifically, what makes it unique? Now you've got a customization built into it. So I can come up with whatever prompts I may want so that I can figure out more additional insights that I can gain from it. Whether it is taking a coaching call and how do I take my coaching call and turn that into an email sequence so I can go ahead and sell more clients? Or how do I take a sales call and see, like, all right, what are the commonalities I'm seeing across these sales calls? How do I leverage that to remarket or market my brand or create content to explain to people and sell my brand and so forth? So there's all these other customizations that are built into it besides just, hey, we know that you need X. We're going to give you just X.
That's an insight for me. I didn't actually think of putting like a sales call or a meeting into the tool. That's actually a really neat use case. I'm going to start doing that to pull insights or pull reminders or things that you created for yourself. Because let's say you're in a meeting and you're recording it with your team or maybe a freelancer or a contractor you're working with, and you want to review your entire script of that meeting, you could use the chat feature within Cast Magic and say, hey, what was the task that I told my partner that I was going to do? And it will most likely find the different tasks that you described in that meeting, correct?
100%. And part of that is already built in without having you to create the custom prompts. So you can go like, all right, these are the common things in our meetings, or what are the action items? And so now instead of sitting there taking notes, you can sit there and take notes. But also the cool thing is quotes will come up. You're like, oh man, I said something really smart. Like, what did I say? Well, now it's recorded. So you're able to go like, oh, that was it. And like, have you ever been in a meeting where like that was a quotable moment? Like, wow, we should put that in our marketing material. Like, oh, did someone write that down? You're like, great. Now you can record it. It's going to know it for you. And you can figure out, great, here is a quote that came out of our meeting. Go into Cast Magic and go turn this into marketing material, or how would I market this, or whatever the case may be. It's like there's so many different components beyond just as the top of our conversation. You're saying like, oh, for podcasting, I'm like, no, that's what's so cool is how do we take any audio or video file and figure out ways to repurpose it and make it valuable for you, whether it's internally or externally.
That's awesome. So to dive a little deeper into kind of the tech side of things, and we might lose some of our listeners on this, but are you guys using open AI technology? Are you using Google technology? Like what's kind of, or if you're at liberty of sharing sort of the backbone of the AI technology?
So the nice thing is from an engineering standpoint, the team is always testing different things. So the main use case, the main tool that we're using is OpenAI. But what we've then done is an amazing job of coming up with the customization using that. But yeah, the team is constantly looking at things in the back end because our North Star is accuracy. So we're constantly doing things to improve. How do we make not only the transcription accurate, but also the output so it sounds less AI? What makes us unique is it's your recording. So if Tyler puts in his podcast, it's your words. We're not looking at things on the outside. We're not taking outside noise and information. It's truly what have you said. So the output, if you would look at it, is like what is the content that's being created is being created in your words. And you're like, maybe this sounds a little too AI, then great. You have the flexibility to kind of change that. You can put in content samples. You're like, this is how I write. So use this as the basis of what I want my output to be. So yeah, it's exciting.
That's cool. Okay, nice. So I know you very likely haven't worked with tons of hemp companies just based on our conversation, but I know that no matter what type of business you run, no matter what industry you're in, this is literally a tool that any business, any entrepreneur, any company could utilize in their business. Do you have some success stories or testimonials or something like case studies or anything that you could share with us on how someone has used this?
I mean, well, without giving away everything we're going to cover next month in the workshop, right? But yeah, so you've got podcasters that are using it to build out their business. You got digital marketers. We've got a lot of social media agencies. They're like, great. How do I take a video reel that I've created and then turn that 30-second or minute reel into a blog post, into a newsletter? Help me write the social content and the social script. You've got the ability to take multiple recordings and build out additional content from there. So from a brand standpoint, you've got coaches, you've got podcasters, I've got universities that are using this. Not necessarily for their students yet. Maybe they are. I'm not aware of the students, but anything to figure out how do I educate people? How do I put more content out there? We've got course creators. So if you think about it, I want to teach a course on hemp and whether it's the different modalities of it, the reasons to use it, whatever the education is, you're able to take that course video, run it through the course profile, and it's going to create a worksheet, a quiz, lead magnet, so you can sell that course and so forth. So like all these different components to really truly help you get the message out there more or learn from it.
Yeah, that's great. So it really doesn't matter what type of business you're in, like you said, like I said, and whether you're an educator, a coach, whether you're running a hemp clothing business and you just need to educate your clients, this is not only a tool to help you and your internal team to summarize things, streamline things, simplify your processes, pull out insights, nuggets from your conversations, but then also utilize existing content, whether it's a YouTube video or a podcast, any sort of audio recording, you can utilize that to then multiply your ability to be in front of your clients or prospects.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, if you're trying to do, let's say you're selling a hemp clothing company, right? So it's still education, right? So I've got to not only try and sell these products, but educate people on what the value of these products is and why they should be using my company or this company in specific. So you're able to take a recording, whether it's a voice memo. We've got an iOS app, so just record like, who's our user, or what are we trying to sell, and how do we do this? And our AI is then going to be able to leverage that recording and help you figure out, how do I make this a newsletter, make it a blog, make it something that I can continue to engage and educate people on.
That's so cool. So as you're producing this content, we talked about Twitter, we talked about Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, like places that you could sort of apply the content that you're producing. But what other integrations do you guys have? Like, does this tool play friendly with other, I guess, platforms, or like what sort of integrations do you guys have?
So our I guess the only specific integration we've got is Zapier. But in terms of how do I get content in there, you can get an RSS feed, so podcast, you can upload the content directly from your computer. You can use the iOS app, and so speak into your phone and it'll automatically be there. Vimeo, YouTube, Reels, TikTok. So multiple different ways to get your content directly into your account to work with. And then how do I get that content out? You can download. A lot of people have figured out systems to download it as a CSV and then run some kind of tool that they've got on the back end, or use a Zapier. So zap it to whatever outputs you kind of need. So as we see from a tool standpoint, what other people are using Zapier to export it directly to, we'll have a better understanding of like, all right, what direct integrations. Right now, a lot of the integrations we're focused in is how do we get the content in there for you, and the export, that's an easy one. You can either just copy and paste it into whatever platform you need.
Awesome. So my next question is probably going to cover some of the things that we already described and talked about. But when you're an entrepreneur, you work for Cast Magic, head of growth. So obviously your focus is more reach, more users, and you deal with a lot of different businesses. What would you say is the most common challenge or problem that entrepreneurs struggle with, especially as it relates to content creation? Like, what is that main theme that comes up for you when you're having these discussions, and how does Cast Magic help overcome that?
So the two things I usually hear, which shouldn't be shocking, is there's not enough hours in the day, so I don't have the time to go figure something out. But if you really think about it, technology is there to help you. So if you spend a little time on the back end to figure technology out, it's going to make you work smarter instead of harder. So right now, people are working harder because they're not leveraging the technology. They're either using old systems or processes. So if we can just help get you feeling into that discomfort of going like, all right, it's going to take me a moment to figure this out, but the light bulb moment is usually they're like, what? I can do that. No different than our conversation right now. And you're like, hold on, I didn't even think about using meetings. Like, I love those light bulb moments and going, oh, all right, well, I've got all these calls, or I speak on stages. Like, what do I do with all this back catalog that I've had of content? So that would be the one thing. And the second one is prompting. So AI is new. A lot of people are like, I don't understand prompt engineering. I don't understand even what prompting is. So because of that, back to your, what is my title? It's head of growth, but it's also head of community. So I've got a Slack community of over 1,200 people so that you're never alone. You come in there and go, great, what are the prompts that people are using? Because you and I can use the same prompt, but your conversation is different than my conversation. Therefore, the output is going to be different in terms of what it writes for us, because what we're giving it is different. So we can share the same prompt and know that it's going to be different. And then we tweak it. So prompting becomes a big question, which is why, I've got all these resources already built in prompts, but also everyone's now educating. And we run a workshop every week to try and help people, incredibly accessible in that regards as well.
Cool. That actually kind of tied into my next question, which is, what sort of resources and support systems are in place to help new users make sure that they're successful with the tool? So you mentioned the Slack group where people can just go in and ask questions to over 1,200 users that are on that Slack channel. And I know you guys have like tutorial videos and plenty of resources, a support team that'll be there to answer people's questions, which is really nice. And I've gotten great feedback and great support so far using it myself. But I'm curious, and we'll go deeper on the webinar, but are there any other developments that are kind of in the works? You guys have a roadmap where people can kind of see what your future plans are?
So we don't have a public roadmap, but as users, so if we think about how Cast Magic was built, it was built to serve our founders' needs themselves. They're like, we don't have the time to do these things. So they built a tool that would allow them to have that time. Once again, work smarter instead of harder. And because of that, because we are users ourselves and building it with you in mind, the feedback we get from our users, our magicians, is exactly what fuels the roadmap. Zapier was the first thing because people are like, all right, where do I send this content? We're like, all right, let's build an integration. Zapier is the leader in that. So how do we help people in that regard? We built Pages. So Pages is a feature that allows you to take up to 5 recordings and repurpose that content. So good example is I take like my coaching calls. Actually, a perfect example. I took 5 coaching calls with my mentor, and based on the things we're talking about, I then went to Pages and like, all right, write me a workshop, build a workshop for me. So it literally took my coaching calls based on all the content we're talking about. I was able to build a workshop. Then I went into PowerPoint. I built out this workshop, and then I presented it to an organization, took that recording of that PowerPoint, took it into Cast Magic. It built me then the worksheets, the quizzes, and all the handouts that I could then give to the people that attended the workshop. I'm like, this is incredible. So if we started off on the podcasting side and then realized, like yourself, you're a podcaster, but you do all these other components, we started building that into the product. So the more you tell us what you're doing, we have a lot of churches that use Cast Magic. So one of our profiles is a church, a sermon profile. While it's not public, we work and we make that accessible to the churches that need it. So the more we know, the more we get feedback from you, the more we can build it and make it even a better product. That's
super cool. Well, it's been really fun having this conversation. I know our listeners will get a lot out of it. I can't wait for them to start playing around with Cast Magic. And so I just have 2 last questions for you. Based on your experience with Cast Magic and the very little that you know about the hemp industry, what key piece of advice would you give hemp podcasters, hemp entrepreneurs that want to be podcasters that are looking to scale their business?
I think it goes back to kind of the start of this conversation, the educational piece and kind of what your focus is education. So if you keep that in mind, that you're fighting, in a sense, an uphill battle because whatever dollars are larger for, right now, all I keep hearing about is how do we take plastics and turn those into clothing? And it's like, all right, well, what is the actual work that's required to do that? Could we do something that's cheaper and better and use hemp? So it's all about customer education, people being educated on the hemp industry. So how do you do that? Well, let's use content to repurpose and flood the market with more content. So if I were to tell a hemp entrepreneur going like, great, work smarter, not harder, and educate more. So the education will lead towards sales. You can go like 1% of the market knows about hemp, and we've got to start working to educate the other 99%, making up numbers, right? But like to do that, it's great. You've got tools available to you to help you do that. And education is going to be the key piece to that.
Absolutely. The word education comes from a Latin origin, which is the word educare, and it means to bring out from within. And so being a true educator, I think, is just reminding people of what's true, what's within them. And being on the forefront of that education. One of my mentors taught me, and this is probably an expression that many different marketers express, which is lead with value. And the more value you provide in advance, or another expression is value in advance, the more value you can provide up front, the people that see that value and get that education, get that content, it's going to be a no-brainer for them to purchase from you whatever products that you're offering, because they're going to be like, man, if they gave me this much value for free, I wonder what the paid service or the paid product is going to be like. And so it is a really great way to boost your sales, get more leads, get more traffic, whatever it is that your goals are, is utilizing that resource, utilizing the tool of creating content. So I'm excited to see how this helps our hempsters, our hemp community. We've got our show booked for February 29th at 3 p.m. Pacific. If you're listening to this podcast, it'll be in the description. You'll be able to click a link to register for the upcoming webinar, and we will likely have a recording of it, but just in case we don't, definitely be there for the live show. But for those that are just getting to know you for the first time, there's a question that I like to ask, and I'm going to kind of put you on the spot. It's more getting into the philosophical side of things. Let's say you only had a year to live and you could, do anything in the world. What would you decide to do for for that 1 year of your life, if you're given 1 year to live?
Travel. Go see the world. My ethos is life is about time and relationships. So I love speaking. Like, I am fueled by talking to people, and nothing's better than going to travel to other cities, to other cultures, to other people, and going in there with such a curious mind of the history of the people, of whatever it may be, because we live in a bubble and the planet is not a bubble. So I would want to go and see as much as I can, because I also then truly believe that I am touched by everyone I meet, but I'm also able to provide value and a personal connection there. So as I say, life is about time and relationships. You have no clue where a conversation today will lead you in the future. So one conversation with a stranger today could be something that fuels them, or they hold on to. You may not hold on to it, but it may be something they do. So I would love to just travel for a year and have those opportunities to touch as many lives and see as many things as I can.
I love that. Yeah, to me, life's all about the relationships. And I think that hits on exactly what you're describing, that human connection, having those conversations, inspiring people with your words, and seeing the world at the same time is a noble vision. So it's been an honor and a privilege, Greg. I really look forward to our webinar. Thank you so much for tuning in to HempAware Radio. This is your hempreneurial host, Tyler Hemp, here to empower your hemposphere as usual. And we'll see you next time.
Pleasure, Tyler.